So welcome everyone to this New England MHTTC Childhood Trauma Learning Collaborative Family Compassionate Conversation about community wellness. This is our final event in the Compassionate Conversations series, but please do stay posted to our website because we're going to release an implementation guide for these conversations. We'll share some instructions on how to conduct these conversations in your own communities or families. We'll also share some updated tip sheets as well. And you will receive a recording of the beginning of this conversation in a follow-up email, as well as a tip sheet that has all of the advice that we're going to go over at the beginning of today's time together. So don't feel like you need to take notes or anything, especially the first 20 minutes of our time together is just for you to be present and listen and hopefully learn a little bit about community wellness. So the way that this will work today is I have hit record, and we're going to record our mindfulness practice and the tips that I'll go over, and then I'll hit stop on the recording so that we can have an open and free conversation about your own challenges and successes around community wellness. So as I mentioned, we'll start out with a mindfulness practice. So whatever you're doing, if you could just put it down and take a moment to find a comfortable seat and place your feet on the ground. And we're going to start with our eyes open or closed, whatever feels nice to you. And you can just take a deep breath in through your nose and let it out through your mouth. We're going to try to bring into our mind's eye a picture of our community, whatever that means to you. That might be the friends that you spend time with, perhaps your family. That might extend out to a workplace or an organization that you're involved in. Whatever community means to you, could be your entire city, maybe your state or your country or the world. Just imagine that community in your mind's eye. Continue breathing in through your nose and letting it out through your mouth. And see that community that you are a part of feeling fulfilled, coming together, and sharing compassion and joy. Notice what they might need to feel that sense of togetherness, and imagine them having that. If we're thinking of our school community, that might mean that we're seeing teachers welcome students with smiles. We might be seeing families coming together to provide food or medical supplies or whatever else others in need desire. And go ahead and take one more deep breath in through your nose and let it out through your mouth. Just feel yourself as a part of that community. You can blink open your eyes. And now let's talk about how we can do things to increase the sense of community wellness or whatever our community is. So the first thing that we can do is to start with our personal wellness, to think holistically about what well-being is. So first, thinking about our body. Are we putting healthy foods into our body? Are we getting enough sleep? Are we making time for movement? Then thinking about how our mind is doing. Do we have a balance between challenging intellectual activities and restful, relaxing moments? Do we have the necessary tools to quiet our minds when they become busy? And are we using those tools? And then thinking about how our heart is doing. Are we overwhelmed, stressed, depressed, or are we content, happy, fulfilled? And what changes can we make to move closer to feeling fulfilled? I love to tell folks that before we help others find their own health, happiness, and well-being, we have to make sure that we find ourselves, because we won't have the energy or capacity to help others until we put on our own oxygen mask. So after we take care of our own well-being, we can start to think about how our routines can help us infuse wellness into our daily lives. So forming habits by doing these routines and rituals over time, thinking about if you have any wellness routines and how you could make time for that by putting it on your calendar. We also need to understand that our environment greatly affects our wellness. So if there's anything physically or emotionally unsafe in our environment that makes it difficult for us to practice wellness on a regular basis, we can try to change those things as much as we have agency over them. After we focus on our personal well-being, we can also look at ways to change our environment and our practices to optimize well-being for our family or our organization or community. So you could think about starting some kind of group wellness activity. Maybe that's exercising together or adding healthy snacks to your meals or having healthy snacks out on the table so kids can see those things in front of their eyes and make those choices over some more processed foods. We can also teach about the connection between diet and mental health. The food that we eat does actually affect our well-being. And we can also make time for regular mindfulness practices, doing breath work, yoga, meditation on a daily basis, because the more that we practice those things consistently, the greater positive effects they have on us. It's also important to check in as a group. We have these compassionate conversations opportunities with different groups that we meet with, and having some kind of informal or formal wellness check-in with your family, with your community, with your organization can be really helpful in just taking the temperature of how everyone is doing. Another thing that can be helpful is having some kind of relaxing space that's designated as a space to reflect and refresh in your home or in the place where your community gathers. So thinking about the ambiance of that space and how that affects folks' moods. So considering adding some low lights instead of those overhead fluorescents that often occur in school buildings and offices. Maybe if there's no allergies, you could bring in some scents that are calming like lavender and chamomile. You can also look at what's on the walls in this calming space in your home or community. If it's really busy, that might be distracting. So maybe finding some open wall space or putting up some artwork or posters that bring a sense of peace and calm. You can also look at how to do team building activities with if you're in your family or in a community group that helps each other grow and support each other. You can do these things on a regular basis. You could also, if you have a community group that you're meeting with, you could start each meeting with an icebreaker or a team building exercise. But just planning some times to come together to regularly celebrate each other and to get to know each other's goals, interests, and desires for the community together. You can also talk to the leaders at your school about hosting wellness events that engage the entire whole community. You could do a school-wide wellness program. You could also talk about having some either school-wide or district-wide wellness events about specific topics like healthy eating, exercise, mental well-being, sleep hygiene, mindfulness, or stress coping skills. And we know that not only do the things that we just spoke about affect our mental health, but also our physical needs greatly impact our mental well-being. So if there are families in your community that have needs around clothing, shelter, and other necessities, we can work together with our school building and also organizations in the community to provide some of those needs for families who are in need. You can also, as a family member or a school staff member, talk to school leadership about wellness activities that are being regularly offered to students. And if they don't have any that are happening consistently, you could propose some things. Its research has shown that just taking regular breaks can really improve not only our mood and well-being, but our cognitive functioning as well, how well our brains work. So making sure that leadership has a culture in the school where students and staff are getting regular breaks. Perhaps that could be doing movement. When I was a kindergarten teacher, I loved doing dance parties every once in a while. That always brings the mood up. But also, if you need to bring the mood to a calmer space, doing some breath work or meditation with the students. It's also really great to do a gratitude practice, and doing this together as a classroom or in a community or as a family can actually bring you all together. Research shows that writing down 3 positive things that you're grateful for each day can lower depression and increase happiness. So you could make this a regular routine. So if you're in the classroom, maybe you might jot these down on a poster, or if you are doing this in your home, you could create a gratitude journal that your family writes down things that they're grateful for, and maybe even you record some small mementos in that gratitude journal. If you're grateful for finally being able to see a movie in the theater again, you might tack the movie ticket stub in your journal as well, so it can become a scrapbook of sorts as well. Another thing that family members and staff members can do to encourage these practices in the school building is to ask teachers to start a commitment to kindness in your classroom, where you challenge everyone to find at least one kind thing that they can do for someone else every day. And then for young children, it's really powerful to praise them for the specific acts that they do to reinforce that. So celebrating it each time you see kindness happening, if you're in the school building or even as a parent or caregiver in the home as well. We can also do community service projects as families, as community organizations, or as members of a school community. We can have young people pick their own topics and do research about issues that affect the community's well-being, and brainstorm ways to affect change, and help give them the tools they need to design a community project to address some of those issues. It's helpful to connect young people with community organizations and government agencies that can help bring these ideas to fruition. You could also do something together as an entire school or district. And this might be a great after or before school initiative to give students a chance to have something to do in their free time. Community gardens are a great way that students can not only learn about how whole foods can contribute to their well-being and the community's well-being, but it also teaches young students about plant life cycles and seasons. Students get to learn about how to cook healthy meals, and we can infuse lessons about compassion in this work when we share the food that we've grown together in our community garden with others in the community. You could even have a community harvest celebration when everything has grown in. And we could also start a group at the school that's specifically focused on helping understand how to enhance our school community, looking for ways to clean up if there's litter around, or fix any disrepair that's happened, just looking on how to make our community the best that it can be. So those are a few tips and strategies. And again, you'll get a tip sheet in your follow-up email. And in just a moment, we're going to move into our conversation portion of the presentation today. But I will leave you with these questions that we're going to talk about before I stop the recording. I want you to think about what you can do to improve your own wellness this week. What are some concrete things that you can do to improve your personal wellness this week? And then I'm going to ask you to think about some things that you can do to improve the wellness of your family or your community over the coming month.